I'm Wendy Brickman of Brickman Marketing. Today is our very special guest. I have Dr. Jonathan Benumof, author of the new book, Letters from the Heart, A Young Army Doctor's 1969 Vietnam War Experience. Welcome.
Thank you.
So please tell us a little bit about your background. I understand you grew up in New York City.
Yes, I was born under the shadow of the Brooklyn Bridge on the Manhattan side in a housing project there. The area was called the Bowery. I lived there for 10 years. We then moved across the East River to an area called Queens, and I ended up under the shadow of the 57th Street Bridge. I went to college at the New York City College. I went to all public schools, including college. But when I finished college, I had good enough grades to get into medical school. I didn't know that I wanted to be a doctor, but I thought I'd give it a try. It seemed like a good idea to go to Los Angeles. USC was willing to take me, so I went. And on day number one, we had anatomy class, and anatomy, most people think is very boring. But on that day, I fell in love with medicine, and I knew I wanted to be a doctor. And I then spent the next 4 years in medical school at USC in Los Angeles, which brings us to 1967.
Okay. And then what happened?
I spent 1967 to 1968 interning, as every doctor has to do, at the Los Angeles County General Hospital. And at the end of that year, I had been dating my wife, Sherry, for 3 years. And at the end of that year, which brings us to 1968, Sherry and I married. I did not know what specialty to go into. And in 1968, as many may remember, the Vietnam War was approaching its peak in intensity. And I thought that I would get my my armed services commitment out of the way. So I joined the Army. I could have gone into a specialty, but I figured I'd get my armed services commitment out of the way. And they asked me if I would like to be an anesthesiologist. And that sounded pretty good. And so I said yes, but little did I know that that was an automatic ticket to Vietnam. And 3 months later, I was on my way.
Unbelievable. So
I did not want to go, and I did not know that I was going to go, but there I was. There were my orders.
Surprise. So how did your new book, Letters from the Heart, A Young Army Doctor's 1969 Vietnam War Experience, come to be?
Well, we recently moved from San Diego to San Clemente area. And in the move, we came across a box. And I asked my wife what was in the box. And she said, those are all the letters you wrote me from Vietnam. There were 282 of them. Neither of us had looked at them in the 54 years that had transpired. So I said, well, let's read them together. And we began to do so. They're fairly substantial letters. So we only read about 5 to 10 letters a day, and began taking some notes and realizing that I had really a very unique experience, and that some commentary was necessary to explain it. The idea was we were going to package these letters up and give it to our children and grandchildren, and that was it. But once I began writing commentary on what all of this meant, it began to strike us that maybe there was a book here, that it was substantial enough, and that other people other than our family would be interested in what happened to me that year.
Absolutely. So you were kind enough to take photos at the time, and we have a number of photos to share, and we're going to do that right now. It brings it quite to life. So this is the title of the book, and we'll be going down here. So this is the cover of the book. Tell us a little bit about what the cover means.
Well, the cover actually shows a lot of what's in the book.
Mm-hmm.
In the lower right-hand corner, it shows a little soldier is shooting, and a soldier is then injured, and you move around clockwise from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock, and you see the injured soldier is being medevaced out of the war with a helicopter and being brought to the operating room, which is where I was providing anesthesia. at the end of my tour of duty surgery to these injured soldiers. It was a very difficult time, a very dangerous time. It involved a tremendous amount of work. And because of that, I was awarded a Bronze Star, but also because it was a very dangerous situation. I could not avoid getting injured, so I got a Purple Heart. And on the left-hand side of the book is the back cover, and it says a lot of what I just said.
Right. What amazed me too is you didn't just take care of Vietnam. I mean, you didn't just take care of American soldiers, did you, in Vietnam?
No, there were plenty of South Vietnamese regular army soldiers that we took care of, North Vietnamese regular soldiers, the Viet Cong, and very sadly, many children and mothers who lived in orphanages. The orphanages were often attacked. So we took care of a lot of civilians too.
Yeah, that was very kind of Americans and you. So here she is, not knowing what's going to happen to you and to her.
Right. This was before we got married. Well, when we first met in 1966.
She's very cute. How many years have you been married about?
54.
Yeah, that's great. 54 years. That's awesome. And then she wanted to be a nurse.
Yeah, she was in nursing school at the time when I met her.
Right. Good for her. And this is her mother, Jerry.
I met her on a ward where diabetic patients were being taken care of.
Right.
And I was a medical student learning how to take care of those patients. And she was a nursing student learning how to take care of those patients.
And you asked her for some brochures or something?
Oh, I tried to get her to go out with me 2 or 3 times, but she refused the first 2 or 3 times. But, being a New Yorker, I'm very persistent.
Yes.
And prevailed to get a date.
Very good. So here she is when she graduated in 66.
Yep.
And here you are in medical school.
Yep.
You look familiar. I was around. I wasn't downtown too much, but I was in LA then. It's an interesting time in the 60s.
Yes, very.
Yeah. And there's
very volatile.
Yeah. There's the LA County General Hospital. It's still there?
I'm not sure.
Me neither.
I know it's probably still standing, but I think the medical school and all the patients have been moved to new buildings.
Yeah.
I don't think that building is actually being used, at least not for medicine.
Yeah, I'll check it out. And here you are getting married. Where'd you get married?
In Los Angeles.
Yeah, great.
We honeymooned in the Lake Tahoe area.
Right. Not too far from us. Okay. So this picture shows you now you're in Vietnam. You were drafted. You're in Vietnam in 1969. And you miss her.
Yes. In fact, I tried to have a local artist make a picture of her. And that's what I'm holding. It wasn't very good. So I'm not looking too happy as I'm viewing the artwork by this local artist.
Well, you tried. That's the point.
I tried.
And you were writing each other 282 letters, which are fascinating to read. And she was sending you pictures and you were sending her pictures. Correct. So luckily you're a carpenter.
Well, yes, we had to make our own cubby holes for clothes and a tabletop for a desk and, whatever you needed to carry out the activities of daily living.
In the jungle.
Well, I lived in a place called the fire base, which the way the army levels everything.
Oh.
There are no trees or anything. It's all just dirt and mud, and it's flat. And on top of that was built little wooden huts, and they were called hooches. And I lived in a hooch that could have 4 beds and a little personal area next to each bed. And I'm sitting by my little personal area next to my cot inside my hooch.
Yeah, it's not the Ritz-Carlton.
No.
So
You ought to see the outhouse out behind it.
Yeah, I'd rather not. Okay, so so this is an interesting diagram. I love this in the book. So talk us through this.
I can't really point on this, can I?
No, but you can tell me or tell
Well,
us.
smack dab in the very, very center of the picture, you see the words "my hooch" and a
Yes.
little black box.
Right.
And that's the center of my universe. Now, if I walk out of my hooch and go to the main unpaved road next to my hooch and walk towards the top of the picture, I'm heading towards the emergency room, the intensive care unit, the ward beds, the PACU, where the patients come in on one side of the road. And on the other side of the road is 4 operating rooms. And that would be about 50 yards, 100 yards from my hooch.
Okay.
And the red spots where it has X1 through X6 is where big rockets landed during my year in Vietnam.
Very scary.
So some of them came pretty close.
Yeah. And when they would bomb, you would go underground? Or
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. If you see, my hooch was bunkered on all sides. And so I could, we had little trapdoors in the walls of the hooch, and you could just roll out of bed, roll through the trapdoor and get into the bunker. Or I had a choice. I could run across the road, and across the road was an officers club, and it was an underground bunker. So one of those two places, which is where I tried to go when we got rocketed and attacked, which was reasonably frequent. The alarms went off maybe on average every 2 or 3 days. We were hunkered down in a bunker.
Yeah, there's the jungle, and there's a perimeter fence.
Yeah. On the other side where it says jungle, down towards the bottom of the picture would be a mountain called Hamburger Hill.
Yeah.
And that was the site of some famous battles. And my MASH unit, which you see where the emergency room and the ICU and the ward beds are and the ORs, that's my MASH unit. And the helicopters would bring the soldiers, injured soldiers there. This hospital serviced all the battles involving Hamburger Hill.
Which, if you see the movie, it's frightening. Because, okay, this is an interesting one too.
This is my hooch, and you can see the 4 pots in the 4 corners of the wooden hut, really.
Oh, there you are.
On each side you see there's a floor trap. You can roll through a trap door into a bunker, 3-foot deep bunker trench right outside the trap. And outside the deep trench is 4-foot high sandbags. So it offered pretty good protection as the rockets came in.
Yeah. Doesn't seem, it seems very vulnerable to me, but
Well, nobody survives direct hits.
Right. As you put in your letters, if somebody hits you on the head or you're running, yeah,
if it comes down on top of your head, you're dead.
Right. So this is some of your buddies.
Yeah, some of my hooch mates, and in the background is a bunkered hooch. And since one of them is carrying a sledgehammer, I think we were probably working on building the strength of our bunkers. We spent a lot of time doing that, because good bunkers mean maybe you'll be alive, and bad bunkers mean maybe you're going to be dead. So
exactly.
Well worth your while to make good bunkers.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's the front door of the hooch.
Yeah.
little Playboy symbol on the door. And there's a sign over the door. You can't see it, but it says long timers zone or short timers zone, depending on how many days you had left. But you could see the 4-foot high sandbags and just inside those sandbags are the 3-foot deep trench. So from top to bottom, you had 10 feet of protection over your head. And we got into those bunkers either running from the front door in there or through the trap doors on the side of on the walls of the hooch.
About how many times during that year did you enjoy the trenches?
If you read the letters,
Yeah, I did.
at certain times, it was almost every other day, every third day, you would be down in there. I wrote in one of my letters, that's when I wrote the letters to Sherry. I took a flashlight and wrote some letters or read a book until told to do otherwise.
How long were you staying there?
In one of the letters, I described the fact that we were in the middle of being rocketed and the Viet Cong were attacking from the jungle that you showed in the other picture. And I had to run basically through the battle to get to the ORs because I had to take care of patients.
Right.
So it was a very, very unusual situation.
Here you are in operating clothes.
Yes, standing in front of the hooch.
What's next to you, those bags?
Those are the sandbags.
Okay.
That were the bunker.
In garbage bags, even. Wow.
No, they're not garbage bags. They're canvas bags.
Okay, good.
Very tough bags.
Good. Mm. And it was hot?
Well, it was either, in the letters I described, many, many days. We don't experience this here in the United States, but it was 120 degrees on many, many days. And that's what I wrote in the letters. And if you haven't been in 120 degree heat, you're
with humidity.
And when the monsoons came, it was very, very humid.
Yeah.
It was either raining and cold or hot and humid.
But now it's a vacation destination. I guess there's a season you go.
Yeah, well, that's very hard for me to understand. That's not something I can do.
No, you don't have to. And there you are in your uniform.
Yep.
No. This is, so that's, what's that room?
This is a very large tent. And you can see the ribs of the tent behind me and another doctor who I worked with a great deal. And inside this huge tent, there were no doors in there. It was just a very big tent. And we had our intensive care unit in there, our emergency room, our post-anesthesia care unit. We really didn't have ward beds. We got them, they came in and we got them out as fast as we could. But that's where we did a lot of saving lives inside that tent. Some of the people could not make it to the OR. We had to take care of them and even operate on them out on the landing pad inside this big tent. They couldn't make it to the OR. So we did what we had to do.
Yeah.
And you had to make quick decisions.
I bet. So there's the helicopter that would bring them in from the jungle or Hamburger Hill or wherever.
Right. I had to transport many patients because they might die if they were unattended. And so I had to transport patients out to, there were 2 hospital ships that lay offshore right where we were. They were called the Sanctuary and the Repose. They belonged to the Navy, but that was one of our primary evacuation spots, was from onshore by helicopter to the Navy ships offshore, especially if they needed more complicated brain surgery that we could not do in the heat of battle.
Right, here we go. Yeah.
This just shows a helicopter approaching the Navy ship. I ended up spending a full week on this ship because the anesthesiologist on this ship slipped a disc and had severe back and leg pain, and he was their only anesthesiologist. So they frantically called on shore. They got me, and I spent what ended up being a very different week from the other 51 weeks I was there on a hospital ship. Believe me, it's quite a bit different.
You got air conditioning.
Oh, goodness. And good meal, good food.
Yeah, I know. But you couldn't stay there the whole time? You couldn't transfer there?
Oh, no, I was an Army doctor, and they were waiting for another Navy anesthesiologist to get there.
Right,
Yeah.
I see.
I came home thinking powdered eggs was the most wonderful food in the world.
That makes it easy for Sharon.
Yeah, you could take a tablespoon of powdered eggs, add some water, and you've got 50 eggs.
Yeah. Wow. Delicious. So you're doing how do you say allergic?
I ate a lot of what was called LURPS, LURPS, long range utility reconnaissance packages, which had raisins in them, biscuits, easily maintained stuff.
And Hebrew National Salami from
Well,
Sherry.
we did have a mail service, and I could ask my wife, and she would constantly send me stuff. And most of the time it got through, and most of the time it was edible. And that was absolutely a gift from heaven.
Absolutely. I was so thrilled to read that because it just gave you a little taste of home. Plus she made cookies, and the recipe for the cookies are in the book. You have to buy the book for the recipe.
She made the world's greatest chocolate oatmeal chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Oatmeal banana chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah, that's a very unique combination. Thank goodness.
She still makes them today.
Great. All right, so here you're getting a patient ready for surgery.
Yes.
And here you're working on one of the young boys.
Yes.
Yeah.
Same, taking care of a patient during general anesthesia and surgery on his body.
Would there be like 4 doctors like this, or 4 or 5 doctors?
Well, it looks like there's 3 doctors operating on the surgical field. I am by myself in the anesthesia area.
Okay.
There might be a corpsman in the background.
Yeah. When he's lying down prone.
Yes, this is just administering anesthesia and taking care of a patient who obviously is going to have an operation somewhere on the back of his body.
Are those machines effective?
Yes, they did the job. They were extremely simple. They were very portable. Today, this machine compared to an anesthesia machine that you might find in a civilian hospital would look like a bicycle next to a car.
Okay. Yeah, it looks very...
This machine being the bicycle.
Right, right. But if it works, it works.
It worked, it gave me oxygen, gave me nitrous oxide, and that's what I needed to keep people alive.
Right.
And not feeling pain.
Right.
And towards the end of my 12 months, and go back one, toward the end of my 12 months, around the 9th month, we ran out of surgeons. And although I was designated first anesthesia, I was also designated second surgeon. And about 40 to 60 times I had to do the anesthesia and the surgery.
Great.
By myself because there was nobody else.
But you rose to the occasion again and again.
When there's nobody else, you have no choice. You can't abandon someone in need. So there's really only one choice, and you have to just push ahead.
Right. Here you are doing the surgery.
Yes. I think I even managed to wink there. If you go back,
Yeah,
I think my left eye was winking.
you're smiling under the mask.
Well, probably so. Here
The
I'm doing
spinal is-
spinal anesthetic. I did as many of those as I could because I then didn't have to worry about the patient being under general anesthesia, and I could go elsewhere for short periods of time.
Right. And basketball was a
Well,
sport.
in between all the danger of rockets and attacks and working very hard for very long hours in the operating room, we did have a little bit of recreation. And when I got there was a dirt basketball court, and we ended up cementing
Good.
the area that you see me shoveling dirt. But not too long after that, the monsoon rain started, so we could never play on our new basketball court. I even tried learning how to play the harmonica, but I failed.
It's hard.
I didn't make it.
That's okay. You did other things. And this is what you spent some time doing.
I did a lot of studying because when I went to Vietnam, I had 3 months of training. In order for an anesthesiologist to do anesthesia on a civilian having routine surgery in the United States, that person would have to have 24 months of training. Here I had 3 months of training and was being shipped off to Vietnam to take care of dead and dying patients. It always struck me as crazy, but that's what it was. But I learned quickly, and I did okay.
On the job training.
On the job training, and I did okay.
Yeah, but it wasn't optimal.
But I studied hard, I worked hard, and I really cared a lot. And I think it all went pretty well.
Yeah. And here you are. You got some, she would send you some medical journals, which was helpful.
Yes.
Sherry. These are the famous. I'll have
And
to try the recipe.
These are the oatmeal banana chocolate chip cookies, and they are absolutely wonderful.
Okay, great.
Our daughter now makes them, and she's very good at it too.
Great.
That's
And
my
the Purple Heart. It's beautiful. Yeah.
I got that when a rocket hit the operating room when I was in it, and everybody got hurt inside the operating room.
Scary. And you got the
And I got the Bronze Star not because I did anything heroic. I just had to work incredibly hard for long periods of time. If someone would read the letters, you would see that I'm talking about not sleeping for as many as 4 days, maybe an hour here, maybe an hour there, but we sometimes had to work 2 straight days, 3 straight days, 4 straight days. You just can't stop. If the choice is to let a dying patient die or you go to sleep, what do you think the choice is going to be? You got to work on the dying patient. There really was no choice. You just had to keep going forward.
I think you soldiered on.
Yes, but there was no choice. I mean, the alternative was, in my mind, impossible.
Good.
You can't quit. You can't cry. You can't cry, and you can't do what you cannot do what you're supposed to do.
But then when you returned, you had a beautiful family. But tell us about returning.
Well, I had a wonderful life after that. The next 50 years were absolutely fabulous. The family life was wonderful. We had 2 children. My daughter is standing next to my wife. That's my daughter.
Beautiful.
Yes, and my son that's my son. And they produced 5 grandchildren. And the daughter-in-law and the son-in-law are there. And that was a wonderful part of my life. My professional career was wonderful. I did extremely well, found a great deal of success.
Great. Yeah, you're considered a world authority, and you've written many books and given many presentations and a million articles.
I subsequently produced 8 textbooks in anesthesia and hundreds of articles that doctors found worthwhile in telling them how to practice anesthesia. So I became famous.
Yeah. And here's your lovely wife today.
Yep.
And this book is a message of hope, because against all those horrible conditions and odds, you survived and thrived.
Well, I always had the hope that I would be able to return back to a normal life. Sherry was like a beacon of light
Yeah,
from a lighthouse on a dark ocean,
right.
or you might say a North Star to get back to in a dark sky. It was always
Exactly.
very bright in my mind. This is where I want to go back.
Well, I think the book is well worth reading from, whether you were in the military or not. I found it fascinating. And what I loved about it is these are real letters. And plus you also added a little commentary for today, which gives, and you made some commentary. So it made it even more interesting because you provide the context of the letters.
Yes.
So where can we get the book?
Well, it says at Barnes and Noble, they've been very responsive. Amazon, of course, and independent book distributors.
Exactly. Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. And I know everyone who reads the book is loving it. So I hope many, many more people will read the book. So enjoy the rest of your life, but we'll talk soon. All right. Thank you and good night.
Thank you very much.
Sure.